Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. And when it comes to my everyday carry, most recently it has been alien gear holsters that have become my go-to for a number of reasons. First and foremost, the overall construction, absolutely awesome, really well made, well thought through, feature rich, and for the most part, I'm going to say generally comfortable. Keep in mind the fact that I am using this for an appendix carry, so any appendix carry, it can be hit or miss. The Photon here, which is the Alien Gear Photon, pretty good. It's been softened in the right spots, rounded out in the right spots, but the retention is absolutely awesome. Keeping in mind the fact that this is a light-bearing holster, so I am leveraging, at this point, my SIG P365 XMacro with the Streamlight TLR7A. So this in combination has been awesome. But once the weather cools down and things get a little bit to the point where you can bulk up on some of your clothing, your carry options can change, and that's what we're going to talk about today with the Alien Gear Cloak Chest holster. Now, I've never carried on my chest, but I am really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great way to give me some flexibility and versatility for a number of different reasons. And so today what we're going to do a first look and impression of this cloak holster. Now, of course, like most holsters, you need to build this out specific for your firearm. So for me, it's about the XMacro with the Streamlight TLR7A. And so when we get back, we're going to go through this in detail. But with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now, before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Alien Gear who did provide this for review. And if you like what you see here today, do me a favor, take a look in the description box below where you can get all of the relevant links. Whenever possible, I try to put affiliate links and discount codes, so if you like what you see here today, take a look in the description box below for more details. And so as we get into this here, the Alien Gear Cloak holster. Now, a couple of things that you do need to keep into consideration. And of course, and probably the most obvious, right hand or left hand carry, so that is a critical decision. The next thing is going to be, well, what firearm shell do you need to include with your cloak holster? So that's the first thing. This is a two-part system, so you end up with your shoulder straps and the chest mount and all that, but then you end up with your shell. And so the finishing shell here is again specific to your firearm and then specific to the actual weapon light. In my case here, the SIG P365 XMacro with the Streamlight TLR7A. Now, I am going to hope and assume that this is going to have fantastic retention. Working through this here, just going to drop out the magazine, prove this out to be clear because you never know how things are gonna go. But as we get this fit out here, let's check the retention. So far, Alien Gear doing a wonderful job with their retention. Very snug, excellent fit. That's certainly the case here with the Photon. But as we get into the cloak with the SIG finishing shell, there you go. So that's actually really, really good. And the other thing you can see is this particular model here having the protection for your optics. So it's bumped out a little bit, it buys some space, has a little bit of coverage for the glass, which is awesome. So that's doing a nice job to protect your firearm, and that retention is very snug, which is great. Again, putting this back in, it doesn't have a super like positive click. I'm not gonna say it's mushy, but it's not like clicking in. When you listen to the Photon, this is bang, like click, snap. That's probably because it's a double-sided shell. In this particular case here, you end up with your sort of neoprene and your different materials. This seems to be some sort of polymer of sorts, and that's going to be a softer material than the Kydex itself. So the Kydex here on one side, that neoprene on the other, and that does fit nicely. Generally speaking, fairly good and pretty substantial trigger coverage which is great. So you end up with a nice overall coverage. I can't see necessarily something getting in there and causing problems. And if anything, it's behind the trigger, so I don't see there being any issues. Now, of course, something like a chest rig you could be using in, I would say for me, something like an outdoor adventure, backpacking, hiking, camping, backwoods, something deep where I want to have a little bit of protection and have it on my chest. And so, having that trigger coverage is obviously critical. And I think if this came just a little bit further, it might be better. However, of course, your ability to get on the firearm in the first place can be inhibited, and I would say they got that cut out just about right and as close as they can to give you good, clear access to the grip without inhibiting your ability to get on there. So from that perspective, I would say no need to go any further. That works out just fine. Construction-wise, this did come fully fit out, so this came ready to go. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's because this was set up as a review sample or if this is how it would come, if you were just a standard customer. So I can't really speak to that, but you can see this did come fully outfit. Now, when you look a little bit closer, there is a bunch of hardware. I don't see any reason to need to mess with anything at this particular time, so I'm not really going to get into any more of this hardware. However, I do think that there's a pretty good chance that if you have other, sort of shells or other firearm models or, the ability to swap things around, you might need different spacers. You might need some, thinner ones or thicker ones, depending on what you're trying to carry. So the fact that this comes with all of this leaves this very flexible for your future carry options, depending on what you're trying to do and if you want to swap out firearms. It's nice that it's only 4 bolts, so it should be fairly simple. Now, just taking a look at the underside of the strap, you will see this says regular, so you can opt for regular or extra large. I'm 6'1", 175 pounds, so the regular is going to be probably the best choice for me as it is the smallest. Going through this nice quality nylon straps, pretty straightforward, not a lot to it, but seemingly well done to some solid hardware. So we end up with nice quality hardware, nicely riveted. Now you can see this sort of back panel here, everything coming together very well, everything rounded, softened off, nicely trimmed. So this should be good and durable, yet at the same time comfortable without creating any chafing or anything like that. The holster base here, so this base, they're saying, has the cushioned layer of a cool vent neoprene. So again, this is vented. It might be hard to see on screen, but there are perforations. So that's the cool vent neoprene. And they're also saying that this is reinforced with spring steel and a woven ballistic nylon to make a real strong platform and really to help to assist from your ability to draw. So this is not going to flex in the wrong directions as you're trying to withdraw the firearm. If this was to sort of collapse on you and not maintain its shape, it could inhibit your ability to positively draw. So the fact that it's got some ballistic nylon and the reinforced steel definitely is a cool feature and great thinking from Alien Gear. Again, talking about the custom molded retention shell, you can get this for your standard sort of handguns. You can also get revolvers. So depending on what you're trying to do, a couple of different options. But all of the features are for naught if this isn't going to functionally work for me. So as we take a look here, nice quality buckles. Looking down inside, they say Rock Lockster National Molding, so fairly standard brand, and the Duraflex name on there. So Duraflex hardware, which is always high quality. And for me, I am a right-hand draw, which means the shoulder portion of the holster should essentially go over my left shoulder. Now, it's going to take a little bit of figuring this out and a little bit of practice to get it right, but I believe if I go over my left shoulder and then at this point bringing this around and clipping it here, that should be about right for my right-hand draw. 45-degree cant. And as we get the firearm and going to install it here again, seems like just take a little bit of practice to get the right angle. Now, the next thing is I need to get everything adjusted. I need a good firm carry that's going to be positioned in the right location. So I'm going to take a quick minute, get all my straps adjusted up, and then we'll see how this rides and how comfortable it is. But real quick before I do that, I do want to point out the fact that there's, on this size regular, still a good amount of space, still a good amount of webbing. The ability to size this, if I was wearing a bulky coat, I could certainly get this over a bulky coat or something like that for external carry. So that's going to work out pretty well. But for me, you know, I am typically, I would say, maybe a little more athletic cut. I tend to wear tighter clothing. So for me, cinching this down will aid in my overall retention at this particular time. Which now at this point you can see everything firmed up, nice and cinched down and fairly tight. Right here on the firearm, pretty easy. Can withdraw one hand. That's going to work. Getting this back in again, going to take a little practice to find that angle. And pretty solid in terms of the retention. Getting back on, that's fine. Putting it back in might be a little more suited to a two-hand operation just to get that angle. Make sure that you're not messing around, and especially if you have the magazine in or around in the chamber. So in that particular case, I would say two hands going back in, absolutely, based on my preliminary experience here. But a couple last things worth noting. Now, I like some of the fine details and finishing details on this. First off, fairly reasonable strap on top. You can see widened out and padded, even though this is not all that heavy. For the long-term durability, the long-term use, and my ability to sustain a long trip without fatigue or without this shoulder strap cutting into me, I love that it has that padded shoulder strap. A little bit of adjustment there will go a long way. Next is the underside of these straps. It's very clever what they did, and I like it. You'll notice this stripe here. Well, that stripe there is a little bit rubberized, so it helps to keep everything sitting nicely. It's not just slick nylon like on the outside, but on the inside. That nice rubberized material there going to help everything just sit nicely and prevent it from moving around. Couple other tiny little details, but for example, the extra material on the strap, there is a little keeper to keep everything nice and tidy, so that's pretty cool. I like how they did that. And I do have to say, overall, this seems like it's going to be fairly comfortable on top of everything else. So, a lot of practice to come, but my initial impressions for this Alien Gear Cloak Chest Holster, pretty nice. Now, of course, this doesn't necessarily address my ability to carry spare magazines or additional capacity. You will need to think that through in terms of your system. For me personally, I will leverage a Neomag in my front pocket, which I did cover in a prior review. So if you're interested in checking this out, take a look at one of my prior videos for the details. But this will give me a great way to carry additional capacity in my front pocket, concealed, very effective, very simple, and just adding to my overall carry solution. And so, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. A look at the Alien Gear Cloak Chest Holster. Always nicely done from Alien Gear. So again, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Alien Gear who did provide this for review. If you guys like what you see here, again, please take a look in the description box below where you can get all the relevant details. Fantastic products, always very well made. I don't care if it's the cloak holster. I've had a great time with the photon holster. Alien Gear just doing a wonderful job. So take a look in the description box below. And if you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more on my primary gear. On that channel, I cover everything from hiking, camping, and backpacking excursions, all the gear that goes with it. So from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it. That's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.